Hello, everybody. Here is Caroline, and today I'm going to talk with Mary Dahl. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Caroline. Hi, everybody.
And before I'm going to give you all the room you need, I'm going to read your bio. And I think it's beautiful. So, Mary is an author, writing mentor, humorist, naturalist, joy keeper, and emotional and mental wellness advocate. Mary reaps her joy from the power of words, love, nature, and human and spiritual connections, and promotes the sustainability of peace, relationships, and the planet. This sounds already so beautiful, Mary. Through her organization, Capture Life Writing, it is her mission to eradicate the cultural consensus of mental illness by showing others that they are not the least disordered. Wow. So, Mary, you're a joy keeper. When was the first time that you actually encountered joy?
It's hard to pinpoint because, especially as a young child, there's a lot of joy in my household growing up, especially with my father. He was a very lighthearted man, and he would sit us down in front of the television and introduce us to comedians and funny shows. He used to put on funny records for us and sing along, and he would tell us jokes. And so there was always humor in my family growing up with I had two siblings and my mother, and in my neighborhood, all the neighbors were always playing practical jokes upon one another. So there was a lot of laughter in my neighborhood growing up.
Oh, wow. This
So
sounds,
I don't have one specific memory, but I have a memory of growing up with a lot of joy.
that sounds just wonderful. Wow. So when you talk about joy, how should you prescribe it?
I would say, well, let me backtrack a little bit and say that through the years, my joy, it left me through life experiences, with people passing away, and then you go to school and you're exposed to certain structure and rules. And I lost my innate sense of joy somewhere along the line. And so I went back and forth between having that joy, feeling it, remembering it, grasping it, and then losing it again. And probably for me, the most important calling back to joy occurred when I had a second breakdown, and I was hospitalized for a while. And when I came out, most people were very concerned, but they were all apologizing to me, saying, "We're so sorry this happened to you," and "Oh, you poor thing." And I got a lot of pity, but I didn't get a lot of joy until I met with this counselor, and she said to me, "You're just feeling your feelings." She said, "How can you return to your joy?" And that statement was so powerful. And I said, "Wow." I said, "No counselor has ever asked me that before." And so she was the one that really got me onto a path of rediscovering my joy and realizing how important that is, in keeping your emotions stable and upbeat and positive, So she would give me homework after our appointments, which no counselor ever did. And my homework was to come up with ways. She said, I can't tell you how to do that. You have to do what it means to you personally, because everybody's different. So she worked with me so I could come back to that joyful part of me. So that's what I tell people I work with and my clients. And it's like, how do you return to joy? And some of my clients say, I don't even know what that is. And so it's like, okay, we'll start from square one. What makes you happy? What are you passionate about? What do you turn to in times of trouble? And let's call on that. That's your joy. And once you find that, you just take the steps to keep on going, and you will find more in your life.
Wow, that's beautiful. And do you also use the writing then?
I do use writing, and it's interesting because with my writing, I don't write about what I think will bring people joy. I write from a point of joy. And so I think that I write about my own experiences. So I'm really good about if something frustrates me or irritates me, I'm really good about turning that into humor and it brings me back into a joyful place, and it brings my readers into a joyful place because it turns out funny. And then when I experience that frustrating situation again, it's no longer frustrating because I can laugh about it. So that's how I do most of my writing.
And it's not that your coaching is writing with clients. I thought maybe your clients are writing as well, or
yeah, but I tell my clients a little bit about joy, but mostly I let them take the lead on what they need to write about. And for many of them, they've been through extremely traumatic situations, and they have a really hard time writing about it at first. But between our appointments, they gradually open up and find a place of writing from a joyful or at least a healing spot. I know I have my most recent client is actually writing about his mother. And his mother passed away a while ago. And he's writing about her to heal himself and to do justice for the way that she passed, and kind of as a tribute to how much he loved her. And that's bringing him great joy.
Yes. Oh, that's oh, yeah, makes me silent. Like, wow, beautiful. Yeah. And how about nature? Because you love nature.
Nature is a big part of my joy. I have I turned my house into, I had it certified as a National Wildlife Federation habitat several years ago. And I live on a creek, and I have deer and mink and muskrats and lots of mice and snakes and all sorts of wildlife here. And I have developments going up all around me, one behind me, one down the street from me. So I'm getting more and more of the wildlife here. And I love that. I love that. And it's so when I'm having maybe times of trouble or grief, I head outside and I sit by the creek or I walk by the creek, And the sound is so healing to me. And during the warmer months, I do have my window open, which backs right up to the creek. And I can hear the rushing of the water, and it just lulls me to sleep at night. And I've always been comforted by nature. When I was little, my mother used to take my sister, brother, and I outside and take us on tours of the backyard and point out the spiders and the flowers and tell us about the different kinds of nature. And when my children were growing up, they grew up in the country, and we were on 2 acres of land. And I did the same thing with them when they were little. And my son grew up to be a huge tree climber. And my daughter loved hanging out in the woods, and she still loves camping. Yeah. So nature's been a very joyful part of my family.
Wonderful. So in that sense, it almost feels to me that you don't really have to make an effort to connect to joy? Or is it sometimes like really, I mean, you told us about when you're annoyed or when you, but are there other times that you feel that you do something or just not do in order to connect to joy? Or is it sometimes like calling upon you by surprise? Or
I think a little bit of both. Most of the time I can, if I feel myself pulling away from joy, I can mentally pull myself back to a state of joy. And if I'm having trouble, I step out into nature, or I get in my car and I drive to a park and I just take a walk and that reconnects me to my joy. Or if I'm really struggling, my go-to is my writing. And I pull my journal out and I will actually write. I am not feeling joyful right now. Why is that? And that will trigger my mind to ask myself, what are you going through right now that might be stifling your joy? Or where is your struggle? And usually I'll think about it and I will be able to write that down in my journal. And by expressing it in words, by writing it down, that makes it disappear from me. But I have to feel it. I have to go through those negative feelings before I can return to joy. And writing is my way to do that.
Thank you for sharing this. Yeah, I might do that too.
It helps me. It helps me.
Yeah. So is there anything you would like to share about joy with our listeners, the viewers?
I think that joy is different for everybody. I know it throughout my life, it's been different in different stages. There was once a time where I was into comedy, for example. I needed, it was right after my father died, and he died very suddenly in his sleep one night when I was a teenager. And I needed, I immediately got distracted by stand-up comedy and improv, and I took classes on it. I started up a collection of books on comedy. I hung out with comedians. I actually got on stage and did open mic of stand-up. Again, that was a disaster, so I knew it wasn't for me. But I still had my humor collection of books and my comedy collection of books. And that toned down, or that helped me take the path of humor writing. And so and now more than ever, I think it's the spiritual entity is there. I went out and got my Reiki master, and calling on the spirit really calling on the universe and saying, bring me my joy today, or be with me as I experience my joy today. And so I would encourage people to explore your joy, define what that means to you, and really embrace it. And gratitude, yes, is such a big part of it. Try to filter out the negativity that is coming with this pandemic that we're all experiencing right now. And try to see the good that's out there in between all this other stuff that's going on in the world. Just love everybody. That was a hard thing for me to do, but I've learned to do that through forgiveness. And all of those things, I think, will lead to your individual paths of joy. And once you find that, there's no going back, and it's a beautiful thing.
This is really powerful and well put. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this, Mary. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And to the listeners, viewers, there will be more information in the post.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.